In the aftermath of the United States of America and its NATO allies' embarrassing withdrawal of their troops from Afghanistan in August 2021 after 2 decades of a presence that yielded minimal fruits but only plundered the country, the Taliban regime has turned its hope to China as it seeks to turn around Afghanistan and make it a prosperous Middle Eastern country like its successful neighbors such as Iran and Pakistan. 2 years after that monumental exit by the United States, Afghanistan-China diplomatic ties, bilateral cooperation and trade relations have been increasingly growing stronger as China increases its economic footprint and presence in the resource and minerals-rich country that's under a strict Islamic rule today. On numerous occasions, Taliban leaders like Afghanistan's acting Minister of Foreign Affairs and acting Deputy Minister of Interior have met with Chinese diplomats both in Kabul and in Beijing and even in other Middle Eastern countries on the sidelines of various summits, with their main aim being bringing those two countries much closer. Then China's investments in Afghanistan have been recently growing as President Xi Jinping's government expands its economic and political influence in the Middle East with the approval of various Middle Eastern governments, among them being the Taliban regime. Lately, various Chinese companies have signed multiple deals to develop Afghanistan's various resources, and some are aggressively showing interests to explore its vast minerals and resources like coal, oil reserves, lithium reserves, copper, iron and rare earth minerals. For instance, the Taliban regime televised on January 5, 2023 the signing of a $450 million deal with China's Xinjiang Central Asia Petroleum and Gas Company to explore and develop oil reserves in northern Afghanistan. The deal's details had it that the Chinese company will be investing $150 million annually to Afghanistan, rising to $450 million for the 25-year contract in 3 years. But the contents of that deal aside, the excitement with which the announcement was made by the Taliban regime proved one crucial thing: that they've welcomed China with both hands wide open and are warmly looking forward to partnering with China on a larger scale than they have ever done with any other country before. 3 months later, the Taliban's Ministry of Mines and Petroleum announced in April that China's Gochin Company had expressed its interest in investing $10 billion in exploration and development of Afghanistan's lithium deposits. That discussions regarding the same were underway, and it will be a major undertaking by the two countries since it is estimated that the investment will create more than 100,000 jobs in Afghanistan over the next 5 years. China is also investing in Afghanistan's copper, iron and gold mining projects as well as its agricultural and gas exploration sectors. To understand why the Chinese are more than willing to commit billions of dollars in investments to this country that has long been perceived as volatile and too insecure to guarantee prosperity after monumental failures by the Soviet Union and subsequently the United States and its NATO allies, you have to understand Xi Jinping's ambitions and what the Taliban leaders want. As China seeks to expand its political and economic influence in Central Asia as part of its Belt and Road Initiative, Afghanistan is a crucial link in this chain that extends from China's Xinjiang region to Europe. Under the Belt and Road Initiative, China wants to link Afghanistan to Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan and Pakistan via railways and highways passing through Afghanistan. Beijing has therefore invested in Afghanistan's infrastructure development projects that include the construction of various roads and bridges within the country. Then China is not only seeking to tap into Afghanistan's aforementioned natural resources but also seeking to prevent the spread of extremist ideology so that it may secure China's own strategic interests falling under the Belt and Road Initiative. In May this year, the Taliban announced that China will connect the Belt and Road Initiative through Afghanistan's Wakhan Corridor and build the Khyber Pass Economic Corridor, KPEC, connecting Pakistan and Afghanistan with Central Asia. Then one key project that has already been undertaken by China in Afghanistan under the Belt and Road Initiative is the construction of a massive copper mine in Mies Ainik, which will give China access to one of the world's largest copper deposits. Mies Ainik is the second largest copper mine ever discovered in the world today and an ancient Buddhist archaeological site, but through the Metallurgical Corporation of China, China bought extraction rights for billions of cubic meters of ore in this site that's located 40 kilometers southeast of Kabul in Logar province. It's largely unexploited and it was assessed to reach 450 million metric tons of copper ore, which is estimated to have a total value of at least $50 billion. I bet you now get the point why China is really interested in Afghanistan, why it wants Afghanistan and why it needs Afghanistan. As to why the Taliban regime is happily embracing China for now, it's understandable that the impact of Chinese investments in Afghanistan is far-reaching and has significant implications for the country and the region as a whole. Infrastructure development will help improve the Afghan transport sector, and developing the mining sector will provide the Taliban regime with the cash it desperately needs now that billions of Afghanistan's dollars are frozen by Western powers and the country is under tough sanctions. The Taliban view China as a major stakeholder in Afghanistan's economic development, and that's why they are eager for an increase in Chinese investments since Western aid has dried up. Chinese investment has provided the much-needed boost to the Afghan economy and provided some form of legitimacy to the Taliban, who are desperate to prove to ordinary Afghans that they can govern the country. This is the win-win situation that the Taliban regime hopes their cooperation with China will yield in the long run. However, there have been some doubts on whether Afghanistan will really realize proportionate benefits from these mammoth development projects by China and China's exploration and development of Afghanistan's natural resources. That the Belt and Road Initiative projects undertaken by China in Afghanistan are just a face of China's debt-trap diplomacy, which has left many countries like Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Angola and several others under the yoke of Beijing, and Afghanistan might end up in a similar situation. The Taliban is probably aware of that but still prefers partnering with China because of one important thing, that is, China doesn't aggressively get involved in local politics or governance. China doesn't push for democracy like how the US tried to do. China doesn't influence local governance structures or try to impose new ones, and that's why the Taliban feels comfortable dealing with the Chinese. Contrary to the Soviets and Americans, who unsuccessfully attempted to explore Afghanistan long before this Chinese era, China's involvement in the country is mainly focused on the economic and diplomatic side with a negligible military element. The Soviet and US engagements with Afghanistan were marred by battle-hardened insurgencies that hindered any attempts at development of the country and exploitation of its resources, primarily because the two powers entered the country with guns and tried to force their systems on Afghans in addition to seeking to explore those resources. As of now, there is no equivalent to the Mujahideen backlash that rose against the Soviets in 1979 or the Taliban insurgency that opposed the US presence in the country, and it's expected that the Chinese might not face a similar obstacle as the Soviets and Americans, or at least not yet. Then, unlike in the past where Afghanistan's neighbors like Iran and some other Central Asian states objected foreign influence in Afghanistan, it's expected that they are likely not going to do anything to oppose China's ambitions in the region this time around because they're part of China's one big project. Of course, China has some threats too, and the chief threat to its enterprises in Afghanistan will likely come from the Islamic State's branch in Afghanistan that's known as Islamic State Khorasan Province, ISKP. The ISKP is also a threat to the Taliban regime, and that's why Taliban forces have been trying to tackle the insurgent group. Should the Taliban succeed at tackling the ISKP, they will have transformed from an insurgent group that won over the US to a national government that's capable of providing security to its people and partners, and this will prevent a spread of extremist groups. Additionally, the Chinese leadership hopes that through investment in Afghanistan, the Taliban may be persuaded to limit their strict Islamic rule to their own country and not try to export these views to the rest of the region, especially true to China's Xinjiang region. The Chinese government has faced severe criticism due to its alleged mistreatment of the native Uyghur Muslims in the Xinjiang region, and therefore these investments may be seen as an incentive to the Taliban to ignore developments in Xinjiang and motivate them rein in groups like the ISIS and Al-Qaeda, who may be tempted to expand their operations to Xinjiang and destabilize a peaceful China. Do you think this cooperation will be of any significant benefit to Afghanistan and ultimately make the world a better place? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe before leaving.